Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, it's a tremendous pleasure to respond to what I think has been a really excellent debate today. And I'd like to start by thanking my honourable friend from Wirral West and the honourable member for Worcester, both of whom will have announced they won't be returning to this place after the next election, and we know that they will be a tremendous loss both to this place but also to specifically to our debates on education because of the contribution that they both make and their passion for it. So I would like to take the opportunity of thanking them for their contribution to the sector in this place, and also to thank and congratulate the honourable gentleman from Worcester for the report that his committee has brought together, which has precipitated this debate, and I think has been tremendously welcome. I think it's been an important debate about an area that the government has consistently underfunded, as we've heard, which has contributed, as the honourable lady from Aldridge and Brown Hills said, to the staff and skills crisis that employers raise with members of Parliament every week of the year. I'd like to reflect particularly on a few of the contributions made by honourable members. My honourable friend from Wirral West spoke about the economic benefits of adult education, helping people initially to engage in education and then often move on to the world of work after that. And the honourable gentleman from Worcester reflected that the Cinderella service that we heard so many times had also that he'd heard it said that that Cinderella went on to marry a prince. I remind him that Cinderella was a fairy tale, but he wasn't in the mood to listen to any fairy tales today, speaking very powerfully about the many measures outlined in his report and his disappointment that the government haven't engaged more willingly with some of the measures that were suggested with regard to funding cuts. And I also think his point, both on the moratorium on defunding BTECs, which I say that we entirely agree with, and about careers guidance and its importance in opening opportunities, particularly for people from more deprived communities, was a very powerful point made. The honourable lady from Loughborough just spoke a minute ago about the excellent college, which I had the great pleasure visiting with my colleague Jeevan Sander quite recently, and the responsiveness of her college when she got in touch, I think, says everything about the specific role that our further education sector plays and the passion that people within it have for ensuring that they are linked to the local community, to the local business community, to employers, and making a real difference. And I think there are a few areas of government spending that can explain Britain's sluggish growth figures more directly than our failure on skills, the honourable gentleman from Waveney reflected a moment ago. My honourable friend from Sheffield Brightside and Hillsborough reflected that the savage cuts inflicted to colleges and adult education over the last 13 years has had an adverse impact on individuals' life chances and on our wider economy. From 2010 to 2019, the further education budget was cut by a third in real terms, and adult education funding by almost a half, as my honourable friend from Hayes and Harlington also said. And the collapse in public funding for our FE sector has had many disastrous consequences. My honourable friend from Stockport and the honourable lady from Twickenham spoke about the fact that college lecturers, a college lecturer now would be on £8,000 a year less than the equivalent salary in 2010. and the years of pay freezes, redundancies, non-replacement of lecturers has seen as much as 80% of the FE workforce leave. We heard excellent speeches using their experience in the sector from the Honourable Lady from Great Grimsby and the Honourable Gentleman from Bexley Heath and Crayford, who were both within the sector. And as I say, they got out in time to not have that 8,000 a year pay cut that they would have had if they had still been in there right now. And I think the call that the Honourable Lady from Great Grimsby made for the issue of further education salaries to be taken seriously was a very powerful one. And it often means, as I said, that colleges can't put on courses that there is a demand for because they can't recruit people to teach it, as the Honourable Members for Eastbourne and Loughborough said. David Hughes of the AOC said that the past 12 years have witnessed a decimation in funding for education and skills for 16 to 18-year-olds, and there are now insufficient places available, and those that remain are inadequately funded. And alongside the exodus from the further education profession, as my honourable friend from Stretford and Urmston reflected, care apprenticeships no longer being offered at Trafford College, the difficulty in finding courses that are of real importance to our economy is something that is profound in many areas, and the collapse in public funding has been mirrored by and partially caused by a reduction in the amount that employers are spending on training their workforce. Research by the Learning and Work Institute found that employer investment in training their staff is now 28% lower than it was in 2005. So we're 13 years into, to use the government's own words, a revolution that places employers at the heart of our skills system, and yet employers are spending less on training their staff now than they were 13 years ago, and there's fewer courses available. And yet governments seem unable to make the changes that we're constantly told that we need. And it isn't just in the underfunding that our young people, learners and employers have been let down. An incoming Labour government will offer the reforms that many employers and providers have been crying out for. My honourable friend from Stretford and Urmston reflected on Labour's plans to bring forward increased flexibility by reforming the apprenticeship levy into a growth and skills levy that's more flexible and will allow some of it to be spent on other more modular courses, as so many organisations have called for, including Kate Strew-Smith, the Deputy Chief Executive of the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, who said at the time of the last budget that offering flexible skills training by reforming the apprenticeship levy is long overdue. Alongside boosting apprenticeships, the Honourable Lady from Great Grimsby spoke about the difficulty in terms of bureaucracy that many small and medium-sized enterprises find, and the fall that there's been in level 2 and 3 apprenticeships. And so allowing employers to utilise their funds to help people back into work, it is so important that the government get it right also on qualifications. And we heard from the Honourable Gentleman from Worcester about the government's review into BTECs, and I think that that is tremendously important. The Labour Party support T-levels. We recognise that they are a qualification in evolution. The purpose of them has changed in front of our eyes over the course of the time that they've been there. And there have been issues with implementation, as the Honourable Gentleman from Edinburgh reflected. But the primary role placed at the centre of that qualification around the passing of a single exam, as opposed to the more modular forms of study and assessment that is available in some of the other advanced general qualification, is missing out on something that has proved transformational for many students. And that is why, I repeat, Madam Deputy Speaker, that Labour will pause the disastrous approach the government are hell-bent on pursuing in terms of level 3 courses being defunded. I think it's worth recalling the role that the dysfunction at the heart of the government has played in the approach that the government are taking. The Right Honourable Member for Chichester was the Skills Minister who set England on the path to an all-T-level world. She then disappeared into other departments while the Right Honourable Member for Stratford headed up the consultation on the government's approach, in which a staggering 86% of respondents, skills professionals, employers, learners, their families, were opposed to the plan. Now, 86% is not a small minority. It is the kind of overwhelming response you only normally see in a Liberal Democrat focus leaflet. And so it needs to be taken seriously when actually the government say 86% of people are opposed to our plans. The Right Honourable Member for Stratford did all he could do and announced the government would only be removing a small number of courses, and the sector, I think, breathed a huge sigh of relief. But then this Right Honourable Member for Stratford was promoted. We had the two-day reign of the Honourable Member for Chippenham. She was then followed by the Right Honourable Member for Braintree, who was followed by the Right Honourable Member for North West Hampshire. Finally, exhausted DfE officials provided their 6th Secretary of State briefing in just over a year to the Right Honourable Member for Chichester, who was now back as the Secretary of State. Now, whether the outcome of the original Level 3 consultation had gone missing somewhere between Secretary of State briefing number 3 and Secretary of State briefing number 6, I don't know. But what we do know is that Bobby Ewing-like, the previous year hadn't happened, and suddenly we were back to the disastrous approach that 86% of consultees had warned the government against. Now, we believe there's a real need for skills policy to be aligned with regional economic policy and to be evidence-based. And so, unlike the current government, we will ensure a joined-up approach with a new body, Skills England, to coordinate that framework. In closing, Madam Deputy Speaker, for too long, this short-sighted approach has held back the ambitions of our people and our economy. But we all hope that those days are nearly behind us. Finally, this exhausted government can be put out of its misery, and the Conservative Party can have a period of quiet, or maybe not quite so quiet, reflection on which they consider what kind of a party they wish to be. And then it will be time for a Labour government, one that recognises the importance of a joined-up skills system, that encourages employers to invest in their staff, that eases the bureaucratic burdens that shut SMEs out of apprenticeships, and ensures that money allocated for skills is actually spent on skills. A government that sees that making the best use of all our talents is the way that we grow our economy and repair our society, and sees FE college lecturers, school teachers and local adult education providers as key contributors to our economic plan. A government, yes, that inherits a rancid economic picture, but one that has the plans needed to return our nation to growth, with schools, colleges, universities, devolved decision-makers and employers working in tandem. That government is coming, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it cannot come a moment too soon.